The strangest thing happened to me this summer between my 8th and ninth grade years of school. It wasn't puberty, that had already taken place, just to make things clear. I've never given much credence to the paranormal, but this experience really left me wondering about the unseen forces surrounding us. Our cousin, Helaman, was staying with us for a few weeks. Since my brother, Randy, and I had grown up hanging out regularly with Helaman before we moved from California to Georgia, we had a blast during his visit. We shot each other with airsoft guns, started fires, and did the rest of the typical guy stuff. We lived in a subdivision, but like a lot of the homes in that area, we were bordering woodland. Deer would often show up in our backyard, so we had a lot of room to roam about as we hunted each other down. Nothing out of the ordinary happened, or had ever happened, until that one night. I don't remember exactly what time we decided to hit the hay, but it was probably past midnight. Helaman set up a makeshift bed with blankets on the floor of my room. The lights went out, and I quickly drifted off to sleep since I was pretty tired. In my dream, I was conversing with my cousin, but everything coming out both of our mouths was jarbled nonsense. Eventually, I was able to control my speech so as to speak coherently. "Dude, I can't understand a word you're saying. What's going on?" As soon as I said that, I snapped out of sleep, opened my eyes, and was wide awake. "Hey man, that was so weird," said Helaman. We both realized we'd been talking to each other in our sleep. We both lay where we were, me on the bed and Helaman on the floor. Both of us were overcome with an immense sense of dread. There was no reason to be afraid, other than the oddity of sleep talking. Nothing at that point had occurred to shake us. Yet this inexplicable fear weighed so heavily upon us that neither of us could move from where we were. We didn't dare get up, much less leave the room. Helaman and I had this very firm notion in our heads, like a warning from a sixth sense, that if we were to step out the door, something very, very bad was going to happen, or we would see something we weren't supposed to. Maybe the living room wouldn't even be there. Maybe the room had been relocated to another place entirely. All we could do was talk to each other, describing the oppressive sensation paralyzing us. Then, we noticed part of what made the situation terrifying. It was too quiet. Abnormally quiet. "You can't even hear crickets, and they're always making noise at night," I said. And I'm completely serious here. As soon as I made that observation, a few cricket chirps started up. Then, some more joined in. Within a couple of minutes, the silence was gone, broken completely by the symphony of crickets outside. We were freaked out before, but that was what really convinced us that something was up, that it wasn't all just in our heads. Granted, I'm sure crickets don't chirp all night, but what was the likelihood that they would suddenly start making sound the second I spoke out about their absence? Then, to top it all off, we saw a greenish glow in my window, which faced the forest. It looked like it was bright at its source, but coming from afar, deep in the woods. At this point, Helaman and I were trying to figure out what to make of the situation. Was it aliens? A secret government test? We continued our theorizing until sleep got the better of us. When we woke, the sun shone reassuringly, and the dread that filled our hearts the night before was gone. We went out to tell everyone what happened. The first person we talked to was Randy. He was a bit incredulous at first, but he soon saw our sincerity and believed our story. We went in his room to keep talking, when he was surprised by something on his desk. There was a note, a piece of lined, college-ruled paper with a few words written in red colour pencil. There were only 3 words. Read the book. What's that supposed to mean? We pressed. Upon further inspection, we realized it was Randy's own handwriting, but he didn't have any recollection of writing the note, and what the message, read the book, meant was as much a mystery to him as to us. On any other day, we probably would have shrugged it off as a regular case of sleepwalking, but given what Hellerman and I had been through, we started to feel some supernatural conspiracy was in the works. Things only got scarier when we talked to my younger sister, Leslie, who was 10 at the time. She told us that in the middle of the night, she had gotten up to grab a drink of water. On her way to the kitchen, she saw a shadowy figure in the living room. Thinking it was my dad, she called out to him, but the figure ignored her, opened the door to the balcony, and stepped out. Leslie found it strange, but silently started back to her room. However, she decided instead to enter my parents' room, where she found Mom and Dad both sound asleep. Finding space in the bed, she fell asleep. When Leslie asked around the house the next morning to find out whether any of us had been out on the balcony, none of us could answer in the affirmative. All us kids went down to the first floor living room to discuss all this. My brother's room and mine were on the ground floor level, while my parents and younger siblings were on the second floor. My mom had been reminding me all morning to pick up the dirty clothes littering the floor of my room and put them in the wash cycle. We were so engrossed by the previous night's happenings, however, that I neglected my chores. Noon came along, and Mom called us upstairs for lunch and delicious pizza. I climbed the stairs. I saw the figure of a hunched woman in my room. I didn't think much of it. It was just my mom picking up the dirty laundry I'd neglected to gather all morning. I felt a pit in my stomach when I reached the second floor and saw my mom in the kitchen. Randy and Hellerman looked at me. They had seen the woman in my room too. The 3 of us grabbed heavy items that could be used as weapons and headed back downstairs. There was no one in my room. We looked throughout around the house and in the backyard. Not a soul to be found. Needless to say, we were all paranoid for the next few days. But nothing creepy happened after that, and I've never had any further dealings with the supernatural. To this day, I wonder what exactly paid us a visit that night that left us paralyzed with unbreakable dread. I just hope it had its fill of me and is off to brighten other people's lives. This happened in 2014. I was in 6th grade when this happened. I like to think that I was a pretty good kid when I was younger. I got up every morning before school and made my bed. I still do it to this day. I can't remember the exact date, but I know that it was in November. School had just started that August. We had to do this vocabulary program called Membean. I remember having to do it for an hour each week. Anyway, that day, I remember waking up, making my bed, and going through the painful 45 minutes that a girl must go through to get ready. I got to school and talked to my friends before the bell rang. I walked to my bottom locker, which I couldn't stand, and walked to my first class. The day went by as I walked to my 8th and final period. As I was walking, I got the text from my mom saying that I had to ride the bus home. I was fine with that, as I do it once a week. When I got to my final class, I saw we had Membean to do. I hated it so much. I got to my house after riding the bus. I was excited because I was going to be left home alone until 6 o'clock that night. That meant I had 2 hours to do whatever I wanted. I walked into the kitchen, grabbed some goldfish cookies, and walked over to the computer. I started Membean, and I set the timer for 15 minutes. About 4 minutes in, I heard whispering. I paused the program and waited. I didn't hear anything else. I thought that it must have been my imagination. I, the horror movie loving child I was, started to think the worst. What if there was someone in the house? What if it was a murderer? What if I was about to get kidnapped? What if, when I was kidnapped, I was assaulted? I got scared, but I thought, if I sit here and act like I didn't hear anything and someone attacked me, I would surprise them. So I started up Membean and studied. Then, after 2 minutes, I heard whispering. I knew it wasn't my imagination. It couldn't have been. I walked into the kitchen and grabbed a knife. That was the only thing I thought to do. So I set the knife down by my computer and continued with Membean. After a minute, I heard more whispering. I broke down. I grabbed my phone and the knife and ran into the garage. I was sobbing. I didn't know what to do, so I called my mother. She didn't answer. I started sobbing louder. I called my stepdad. He finally answered. "What's wrong, Kate?" he asked. "There's someone in the house," I said through the tears. "Are you still inside?" he asked, fully concerned. "No, I'm in the garage," I said. "How do you know there's someone in the house?" he asked. "I heard whispering from upstairs." It sounded stupid, I know, but I heard it. I heard him sigh in relief. "Kate, it's just your imagination," he said. No, it's not." I heard him chuckle. "I'm going to need you to go inside and look around." I was scared out of my mind. I knew that he wouldn't have taken no for an answer. I slowly opened the back door to my house. My house isn't the biggest. It's a 2-story house with a connected living room and dining room, a small kitchen, a staircase, one hallway connecting the only 2 rooms, and a small laundry room. I walked into the house, through the living room and dining room. I looked up the stairs. Let's call my stepdad James. If someone I know reads this, I don't want them to get worried. James? James? I asked. Yes, Kate, he said. I'll call you back, okay? He said okay, and I ended the call. I slowly walked up the stairs and into my mum's room. I looked in the closets, under the bed, and in all the hiding spots I once used when I played hide and seek with my friends. I sighed in relief. I then realized that I hadn't checked my room or the laundry room. When me and my best friend had played hide and seek, we hid in the laundry room, on top of the washing machine. I walked slowly back to the small room. I pulled open the sliding doors. Nothing. No one. I couldn't celebrate because I still had to check my room. I took 2 steps and was at my room. Like I said, my house isn't that big. I swung open the door. No one was there. I checked the closet, under the bed, in my bathroom, and behind my dresser. I looked over at my window. It was open. Not fully open, but slightly. I knew that it wasn't open when I left that morning. But I was on the 2nd story of the house. It was a good 10 feet away from the ground. I almost peed my pants, and I'm not joking. I started hyperventilating, and I knew I needed to calm down. I fell to the ground and started taking deep breaths. After 5 minutes, I relaxed. I stood up and started to walk to the door. That's when I saw my bed. The bed was unmade, and the blanket was crumpled and near the edge of my bed. My pillows were ruffled, and one was on the floor. We moved almost immediately after that. Growing up as a well-cultured, traditional kid, anything out of the ordinary was scary to me. Being only 6 years old, my thoughts were innocent and timid, and I barely took heed of anything outside my house, until it affected my brother. You see, my brother was a rather large man, frequently going to the gym and completely hidden of any emotion which could embarrass himself. Me, myself and I type of guy, and all the siblings were scared of the eldest. We will call him Sam. None of us dared to even talk to him. In 2007, we were off to visit family in Afghanistan. A long trip and nothing out of the ordinary. Slept at a hotel and explored during the day. On our first night, my dad got a call from my great-grandparents urging him to visit. My father explained he wasn't able to because of our timetable, and I remember the call being on speaker whilst my great-grandfather's voice crept to a whisper. "Listen to me. I need to meet you now." So, my dad called for a taxi, and me, my 3 brothers and mum were rushed to their house early in the morning, expecting the worst. We got there after an hour ride, and I was gobsmacked by what was standing in front of me. An old bungalow made from a clay or soft stone material, with cracks littered all over it, letting nature crawl out of them. As expected, my great-granddad greeted us, shaking my brother's hand and patting me on the head. When he bent down to me, I instantly noticed his dull eyes, red and lifeless, matching his bruised-like bags beneath his eyes, showcasing how little sleep he had. Having known him for his olive skin matching mine, his skin was strikingly pale compared to my family's. To be completely honest, it did scare me at the time. Skipping to the night, everyone made sure to visit the toilet before we slept, due to the nearest one being a few feet outside the house. Except my older brother. We all laughed each other to sleep. Due to our late sleeping time, no one noticed Sam leaving the room to attend the toilet in the middle of the pitch black night. I woke up to my little brother's crying face shaking me hard. With a confused look, I pushed myself up to see everyone still sleeping. What's wrong? Why are you crying? I muttered. He was breathing quickly and shot back. Where is Sam? A blood-curdling scream filled the room as my dad shot up and grabbed a metal rod as he ran outside. Me and my brother shot each other a glance before rushing behind him with my grandparents and the rest of the family following behind us. My dad shot glances left and right before rushing into each room before he quickly turned around, staring at me and my little brother's crying face. He rapidly looked around my family whilst his eyes slowly widened, realizing the disappearance of my brother. A piercing cry, now notably a man's scream, chilled our spines, not coming from far. My dad inverted himself to the source of the sound, running to where it came from. Reaching the toilet, which was more like a porta potty, we heard my brother's loud crying and struggling to open the old, rusty door. My dad shouted at him to open the lock, but through Sam's cries, he muttered, "I can't." My dad attempted to calm my brother down. Sam, just try and push the door open." Sam then started to whisper, "I can't. He's watching me. No. His drilling scream scared us, whilst my dad started pulling at the door to open it. My second older brother helping him, until finally he kicked down the door, and I saw a scene which I will never forget. There was blood splattered all over the floor at random places, and even some at the ceiling. Sam passed out on the floor with a gushing wound from his forehead and scratches oozing with blood all over his arms, his pale white face frozen in fear, with Arabic written on top of him on the wall, translated to, "I see you." Sam didn't know how to write Arabic. We took him home and flew back to England the next day, urging him to talk to the therapist, even though he insisted he was fine. Life went on, and we never spoke about the situation because Sam never mentioned it. Honestly, I forgot about it altogether until recently. Sam was moving out of his old apartment, and I took the liberty of helping my mom pack his things away. I cleared his room and started to scrape off the wallpaper. However, I noticed something underneath it. I couldn't make out what it was. I ripped off the wallpaper, revealing something which shocked me to this day. In red writing, dripping down to the floor, translated to English from Arabic, was, "I see you."